Have you ever looked at your garden and wondered why it feels like you're only renting the land? Have you ever stood in your garden and quietly asked yourself, why does this feel like I'm only borrowing this space for a season? Every spring, so many of us repeat the same tiring routine. We buy new seeds, loosen the soil, water every day, protect young plants, wait patiently for the harvest, and then when winter arrives, we watch most of it fade away. We pull out the dead plants, clear the beds, and the next year we begin again from zero. It becomes a cycle of spending money, time, effort, and energy for only a few short months of food. But there is another way to grow, a smarter, deeper way. A way where you do the hardest work once, and then let nature keep rewarding you year after year. Welcome back to Earthly Delights. Today we are not just looking at garden beds. We are looking upward. We are going to use the spaces many gardeners ignore, bare fences, empty trellises, blank walls, and unused vertical corners of the yard. In this episode, I'll share 10 powerful perennial vines that can work almost like living grocery stores. These are plants that can handle tough conditions, resist many common problems, and return each growing season stronger, larger, and more productive than before. By the end, you may never look at an empty fence the same way again. So are you ready to plant once and harvest for years? Let's begin. 1. The resilient underdog, the Cucamelon Melothria scabra. Let's begin with a vine I often recommend to gardeners who think they simply cannot grow anything well. Meet the Cucamelon, also called the Mexican sour gherkin. If you have never seen one before, imagine a tiny watermelon shrunk down to the size of a grape. But the flavor is not watermelon at all. When you bite into it, you get a crisp, refreshing cucumber taste with a bright little kick of lime. This old heirloom plant comes from Central America and has been grown since long before Europeans arrived. In the garden, it is a true survivor. Once the soil is warm and the vines get moving, they can climb up to 12 feet with very little help from you. Pests usually ignore them. Disease is rarely a serious issue. And one healthy plant on a simple trellis can produce more than 100 little fruits in a single season. But the real beauty of Cucamelon is hidden underground. When the top growth dies back at the end of the season, the plant may be forming a starchy storage tuber below the soil. In Usta Zone 7 or warmer, you can often leave that tuber in place. The next spring, it wakes up and sends out new growth faster than a plant started from seed. Cucamelon reminds us that resilience is not always obvious. Sometimes the most important growth is happening quietly beneath the surface, preparing for a stronger return. 2. The impenetrable fortress, Tromboncino squash, Cucurbita moschata. If you have ever watched a healthy zucchini plant suddenly collapse into a soft, dying mess in the middle of summer, you know how painful it feels. Many gardeners have lost plants this way. The usual culprit is the squash vine borer, a destructive pest that tunnels into the hollow stems of summer squash and eats the plant from the inside. But there is a better option, Tromboncino squash, a strong Italian heirloom that grows like a fortress. Unlike ordinary zucchini, Tromboncino has solid, dense, woody stems. That makes it extremely difficult for squash vine borer larvae to enter and destroy the plant. In a garden where regular squash struggles, this vine can keep growing with impressive strength. Give it room, and Tromboncino can run 30 to 40 feet along a fence or trellis. The fruits are long, curved, trumpet-shaped, and can reach up to 3 feet. Pick them young, and they are tender, sweet, and excellent to cook like zucchini. Leave them on the vine into autumn, and the skin hardens so they can be used more like winter squash for storage. This plant teaches a practical lesson. It does not beat the pest by fighting harder. It survives by having a stronger structure. In the garden, and in life, sometimes the answer is not more struggle, but better boundaries. 3. The heat-loving champion, Malabar spinach, Bacella alba. Let's be honest about regular spinach. It is wonderful in cool weather, but once real summer heat arrives, it usually gives up. It bolts, turns bitter, goes to seed, and suddenly your fresh greens are gone. That is where Malabar spinach becomes so valuable. This tropical climbing green does not merely tolerate heat and humidity, it thrives in it. When the temperatures rises, this vine starts growing with real energy, climbing trellises in full sun with deep purple stems and dark, glossy, heart-shaped leaves. Malabar spinach is a true cut-and-come-again crop. Each time you harvest leaves or pinch off a tender growing tip, the plant responds by branching and producing even more. A productive planting can give an impressive amount of food from a small space. Research from the University of Florida has shown that a 10 square meter bed can produce around 40 kilograms of fresh leaves in one season. In zones 9 through 11, it can grow as a perennial, while in cooler areas, it often self-seeds generously. Malabar spinach is a reminder that some plants are built for the very conditions that defeat others. The heat that ruins traditional spinach becomes fuel for this vine. And sometimes the pressure we face is not the thing that stops us, but the condition that helps us finally grow stronger. 4. The multitasking miracle, scarlet runner bean, Phaseolus coccineus. Many gardeners make the same beginner mistake with scarlet runner beans. They grow them only because they are beautiful, and honestly, it is easy to understand why. These vines cover a trellis with bright orange scarlet flowers so vivid that hummingbirds seem to find them from across the yard. But this plant is far more than decoration. Scarlet runner bean is one of those rare vines that gives you several harvests from the same planting. In about 60 to 75 days, you can pick the young, tender pods and cook them like high-quality green beans. If you let them mature longer, the pods fill with large, speckled purple and black beans that have a rich, savory, almost chestnut-like flavor. And if you leave them to dry fully on the vine, you get dry beans that can be stored for winter. Its value also continues below the surface. Like other beans, scarlet runner bean can help fix nitrogen in the soil through its partnership with beneficial bacteria on the roots. In simple terms, it helps take nitrogen from the air and make it available in the ground, improving fertility for the plants that follow. In Usta Zone 7 and warmer, the perennial roots can survive underground through winter and return with fresh growth the next spring. This vine teaches us to look at value more completely. It is beautiful, productive, nourishing, and it can leave the soil better than it found it. That is the kind of abundance every good garden should be built around. 5. The giving tree of vines, Chayote, Sequium edule. Now let's talk about one of the most impressive food vines on this list, Chayote. For a plant with so much potential, it is still surprisingly underused in many North American gardens, and that is a real missed opportunity. Chayote is native to Central America and has been cultivated since the time of the Aztec Empire. It is a plant built around survival and abundance. What makes it so special is that nearly every part of it can be used as food. The crisp fruits, the tender leaves, the young shoot tips, the seeds, and even the large starchy roots underground. In practical terms, it is like growing 5 food crops on one vine. Once established, chayote can become incredibly productive. Agricultural reports show that a mature vine can spread across around 30 feet of trellis and produce roughly 80 to 100 pear-shaped fruits in a season. For a home gardener, that is a serious amount of food from one plant. And planting it is wonderfully simple. You do not need a packet of seeds. You take one fresh chayote from the grocery store, plant it at a slight angle, and let it sprout. In frost-free zones, it can behave as a true perennial. Chayote is generous from top to bottom. Leaves, shoots, fruits, seeds, roots, almost nothing is wasted. It reminds us that real abundance is not only about taking from the garden, but about growing plants that give fully and keep giving. 6. The ancient heirloom. Hyacinth bean, Lablab purpureus. The 6th vine is one that can stop people in their tracks. Hyacinth bean has dark green foliage, purple-tinted stems, deep violet flowers, and glossy metallic purple seed pods that almost look too vibrant to be real. Even Thomas Jefferson admired this plant and grew it at Monticello. But its beauty should not make us underestimate it. Hyacinth bean is not just an ornamental vine. It is an ancient, heavy-yielding food crop that has been cultivated across Africa and Asia for more than 4,000 years. In one warm season, it can climb up to 15 feet and mature in about 60 to 90 days. This is also a plant that deserves respect and proper handling. The young leaves and immature pods can be eaten much like green beans, but the mature dried seeds are different. They contain natural cyanogenic glycosides, so they must be boiled thoroughly with water changes before eating. Traditional cultures that have depended on this crop for generations understand its preparation as part of using the plant safely. Hyacinth bean carries an important lesson. In a world that often wants everything fast and easy, this vine asks us to slow down and pay attention. Some foods are generous, but they require knowledge, patience, and respect for the wisdom passed down by people who knew how to live closely with the land. 7. The forgotten savior, American groundnut, Apios americana. This next plant carries a different kind of weight. American groundnut, or Apios americana, may be one of the most historically important vines on this entire list, yet modern agriculture has nearly forgotten it. Also known as Indian potato, this perennial vine is native to North America. Above ground, it grows gracefully to about 3 to 6 feet, with fragrant pinkish-purple flowers and edible bean pods. But the real harvest is underground. American groundnut produces nutty, starchy tubers that form along shallow runners, almost like beads on a string. Even more impressive, these tubers can contain about 3 times the protein of a standard potato. For thousands of years, indigenous peoples cultivated and depended on this vine as a survival food. There is also documented history showing that when early European settlements faced crop failures and hunger, wild groundnut tubers helped keep people alive through several harsh winters. From a grower's point of view, it is also practical. It fixes its own nitrogen, tolerates wet soil, and can grow in partial shade where many common crops struggle. So why did we stop growing it? As European agriculture spread, generations of indigenous food knowledge were pushed aside and often erased. Growing American groundnut today is not only about adding another edible plant to the garden. It is a way to remember to respect the soil, to honor history, and to reconnect with a food that once helped people survive. 8. The breathtaking healer, passion fruit, maypop, Passiflora incarnata. Now get ready for a plant that feels almost impossible the first time you grow it. If you think passion fruit belongs only in tropical places, maypop will change your mind. Passiflora incarnata, also called wild maypop, is a native North American passion flower, and it can be winter hardy all the way down to USDA Zone 5. That means even in areas with freezing, snowy winters, you can still grow something that feels like a piece of the tropics. The flowers are some of the most extraordinary blooms you can have in a garden. They are layered, intricate, almost otherworldly, and they attract specialized pollinators with ease. By autumn, the egg-sized fruits begin to ripen. When you open one, the pulp inside is sweet, tangy, aromatic, and often compared to a mix of guava and bright citrus. But this vine is not only beautiful and edible. The leaves and flowers contain natural flavonoids and have long been valued in traditional herbal use for their mild, calming qualities, often prepared as a soothing tea. Maypop gives the garden more than food. It brings beauty, fragrance, pollinators, fruit, and a sense of calm. It reminds us that the best plants are not always useful in just one way. Some feed the body, settle the mind, and make the whole garden feel more alive. 9. The hidden treasure, chocolate vine, Akebia cannata. The ninth vine is one of those plants many people already see in garden centers without realizing what it can do. Akebia quinata, commonly sold as chocolate vine, is usually treated as an ornamental climber. Most gardeners buy it for coverage or decoration, never knowing they may be planting a real food source. In early autumn, the long purple-gray pods ripen and split open, revealing a translucent white pulp wrapped around small black seeds. The flavor is delicate, lightly sweet, with subtle hints of vanilla and melon. In Japan, the fruit is considered a seasonal delicacy, and the young shoots are also harvested in spring and cooked as a vegetable. Chocolate vine is vigorous, often growing 15 to 30 feet in a season, and one of its most useful strengths is shade tolerance. Many fruiting vines demand full sun, but Akebia can handle partial shade better than most. That makes it valuable for gloomy corners, north-facing edges, and spaces where other edible vines may not perform well. This plant is a reminder not to accept labels too quickly. Sometimes a vine sold as decoration may also be food. Sometimes the overlooked corner of the yard is not useless at all. There may be hidden sweetness waiting there if we take the time to look closer. 10. The generational wealth, hardy kiwi, Actinidia arguta colomicta. We have reached the final vine on this list, and for many gardeners, this is the one that feels the most surprising. Forget the fuzzy egg-sized kiwis you see in the grocery store. Hardy kiwi produces small, smooth fruits about the size of grapes, and you eat them whole, skin and all. No peeling, no waste, just sweet little bursts of fruit straight from the vine. The flavor is intense, tropical, and wonderfully sweet, often richer than the kiwis most people are used to buying. And the toughness of the plant is just as impressive. Hardy kiwi can grow in very cold climates, even down to USDA Zone 3. That means gardeners in places like Minnesota, the Pacific Northwest, and many other cool regions can grow a fruit that tastes like it belongs somewhere far warmer. But the reason this vine belongs at the end is its lifespan and long-term value. A hardy kiwi vine can live for more than 50 years. Once it is mature and well-established, it can produce up to 100 pounds of fruit in a single year. This is not just a vine for one summer harvest. This is a food source for generations. When you plant hardy kiwi, you are not only planting for yourself. You are investing in a living structure that may feed your children, and one day, your grandchildren. It challenges the short-term way we often think about gardening. Are we only planting for tomorrow's meal, or are we planting something that can outlast us? Conclusion. When you step back and look at everything we have covered today, the lesson is clear. Annual vegetable beds have their place, but they often ask you to start over every spring. You buy, plant, water, protect, harvest, clear, and then repeat the whole process again. A well-established perennial vine is different. It becomes a permanent living structure in the garden. It shifts your space from something that constantly needs your labor into an ecosystem that can keep feeding you year after year, even when you are not watching it every day. and you do not need a huge farm to begin. You simply need to stop wasting the vertical space you already have. A bare fence, an empty trellis, a sunny wall, or even a forgotten corner can become productive. So here is my challenge for you. Choose one fence, just one. Then choose one vine from this list, the one that surprised you most, the one that made you think, I didn't know that was possible. Plant it this season. Do the work once, give it a good start, and let nature keep paying you back for years to come. If this video introduced you to even one plant you had never heard of before, please subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone who loves gardening. More gardeners deserve to know that food can grow upward, return yearly, and become part of a lasting, productive landscape. Leave a comment and tell me which vine you want to plant. And if you know your Usta hardiness zone, include it too, so this community can help each other grow with more confidence. Thank you for spending this time with me here at Earthly Delights. Keep your hands in the soil, keep looking upward, and let's keep growing. I'll see you in the next video.